Hello and welcome to the Indian Express. The big story, the Iran situation. Iran has just fired missiles, about 15 or 20 ballistic missiles at two United States air bases, Al Assad and Arbil in Iraq. And we don't know the extent of casualties, if there are any at all. The United States has said it's assessing the damage, but it is most definitely a major escalation since the killing of the commander of the Quds Force, Major General Qasim Soleimani, by the Americans. So, to discuss the situation and what we have unfolding here, I have Nirupama Subramanian. Nirupama, this escalation that Iran has just done, look, we've been talking of war. I mean, are we there?
No, so this is not clear yet because, yes, the Iranians had warned of harsh retaliation to the killing of Soleimani. And we don't know whether this is the beginning of that retaliation or because the Iranians are pragmatic, they know what's what. They know that there is that any retaliation by them will also bring another retaliation by the US. So we don't know whether this is the beginning or the end of that retaliation. So at this point,
I think they're
it's still
phrasing it as the beginning.
yeah, but we don't know where it will go from here. It's still as uncertain as it was 3 days ago, 4 days ago, on the Friday that he was killed. We're still not really able to predict whether this will actually lead to a war because both sides, both the U.S. and Iran, know that a war in an all-out war in the region would be disastrous, and I don't think that the Iranian neither the Iranians nor the US at this stage want that kind of war. Although both of them are indulging, the US especially is indulging in a lot of war talk, and Trump also threatened to bomb 52 cultural sites, and so all that has been there, but we don't know whether that is just rhetoric
There isn't
or
too much appetite for a war in the US as well, right? Because,
no, there
I mean,
isn't.
they've been, they went into Afghanistan in 2001.
Yeah.
They've been fighting ever since.
And this is Trump. Don't forget that Trump is the president who said that he wants to end all
That's right.
U.S.
That's right.
engagement, U.S. military engagement abroad. In fact, he was at this point. He has been trying to bring back troops from
That's right.
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan, yeah.
So clearly there is, despite all that war talk, I think people do seem to believe, a lot of experts do seem to believe that he may not go all
Actually,
out,
yeah,
go all
yeah.
out. And the Iranians, both Ayatollah Khamenei and the rest of the hierarchy, are very pragmatic. They know that they cannot match the US's firepower in the
That's right.
region,
Obviously, yeah.
and that it could lead to
So, Nirupama, I
an
wanted
all-out
to ask you,
destruction. Yeah.
this is clearly a very calculated, measured response from the Iranians. But this is the official Iranian, uh, response, missiles flying. Now, there are lots of Iranian proxies operating in the Middle East. I mean, all the groups that
Hezbollah.
Qasem Soleimani, exactly, Hezbollah in
Yeah.
Lebanon, and the groups in Syria, groups in
Iraq.
Yemen, Iraq.
Yeah.
So is there a possibility of some kind of response from these Iranian proxies in the region?
Yeah, so this is Soleimani was the great builder of these
Right.
proxies. He built them very assiduously, and so that Iran really has a presence everywhere in the region through these proxies. We don't know really what the response will be from these proxies, and where it might be if there is such a response. So in that
Is there
sense,
a
it's
capability? I mean, we saw these
yeah, there is
Houthi
definitely
attacks on
definitely a
Aramco.
capability. Yeah, so that was there. That I think it traveled about a
Yeah, yeah,
thousand
yeah, yeah, yeah.
kilometers.
Drones, yeah. They knocked out half of Aramco's oil
Yeah,
facility, even though they
exactly.
said that it is an Iranian attack. The Houthis don't have the
Yeah,
capability. But,
yeah.
well, it went from Yemen.
Yeah, and then there was this the way all this started was when the People's Mobilization Front in Iraq, which is also said to be an Iran proxy, they took out an American contractor
Yeah.
just in the last week of
Yeah.
December. So yes, I think they have some kind of capability, but we don't know until it comes. I think it's going to be very tough to say what it might be and where it would be. I mean, they have that entire region from Saudi Arabia to Afghanistan, and it could be anywhere because there are American interests in all these countries: Pakistan, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, there's Israel, there's Iraq, the bases in Iraq. And it's interesting in Iraq as well that, how Iraq has got drawn into this war between, or not war of words, and also some hostile actions between the US and Iran. They've all taken place on Iraqi soil, if you look at it. And the Iraqi leadership has been very clear that, at least as far as the US actions go, there's been a violation of their sovereignty. And you saw
Parliament.
the resolution, and of course, the Iraqis went, they attended, the Prime Minister attended the funeral.
Yeah.
So there's that interesting dynamic in the region. Also in the Gulf region, Bahrain has got a significant Shia population which has a kind of tense relationship with the rulers.
Yeah. Sorry. So this brings me. I just want us to kind of go back to Soleimani himself a bit. I mean, this extraordinary outpouring of grief. I mean, the funeral gathering in Iran. They said that the biggest since that of Ayatollah Khomeini himself in 1980 or 81, and you had a stampede, terrible, 50 people dying in the stampede, and the Ayatollah weeping over the coffin. Really remarkable scenes. I mean, what was Soleimani? And to the Iranian people, to the region, to Ayatollah Khamenei himself, if you could just sum that up.
So very briefly, I'll say that he was actually the number two in Iran, the virtual number two in Iran. He was,
So in your assessment, higher than the president himself?
Yeah. And he had a very high profile in his role as the Quds Force commander. And he had he was very close to Khamenei, and he was projected as the possible next leader of Iran. So all that in Iran, and he had this huge following in Iran also because of his image as a builder of these great networks of Shia forces.
The projection of Shia power outside Iran as well.
Outside Iran in the entire region. So he had a huge image in Iran, and he was just, I mean, for military reasons, for political reasons, he was, and for religious reasons as well, he was very, very important in Iran and the region. And which is why you saw that unprecedented kind of turnout at the funeral, extraordinary funeral. Yeah.
India, Nirupama, obviously, bit of a difficult position for India. India is friends with Iran, India is friends with the US, and India initiated calls to both Iran and the US. We have some serious interests in Chabahar. So what do you make of the Indian position? Where is India in this situation? Because obviously, as you said in the beginning, that we don't know how the situation will pan out, and it could just be that the situation could get even more complicated for India. So, what are the few things that you think?
So India, basically, India has been walking a fine line between the US and the Iran for many years now. And of course, this came out very strongly when President Trump tore up the nuclear deal and then reimposed sanctions on Iran. And then he wanted all countries importing oil from Iran to stop doing that. And we stopped importing oil in the middle of, we brought it down to zero. We tapered it off and we brought it down to zero in the middle of 2019, middle of last year. And yes, of course, our relations with Iran, in the sense of trade relations with Iran, have been affected by the sanctions. Even Indian exports to Iran have been affected. What was interesting about this was that the US gave India what they call a carve out for Chabahar, saying that you can, everything else is off the table, but Chabahar, you can continue to develop Chabahar with Iran. But that meant nothing really, because you didn't have any banks, insurance companies, they were not ready to give you any loans. No construction equipment, no shipping line would bring any construction equipment to that region because there was no insurance, there was no banking facilities. So all that was under sanctions. They didn't want to cross the line. Banks and insurance companies wouldn't cross the line. So it was effectively, the carve-out meant nothing. But what happened recently, last month, if you see, again, walking that tightrope, you had the External Affairs Minister go to the US first for the 2+2 dialogue with Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, and then where he met President Trump, and then a few days later he went to Tehran, where he met the Iranian foreign minister Jawad Zarif. They had talks on that joint commission, and Mr. Jaishankar came out of those talks saying very happy and pleased with the progress in the talks, and hope to accelerate the development of Chabahar. So he's after coming back from the US, there were reports that President Trump had agreed to give. Had agreed to allow bankers and insurance companies to sort of make exemptions for the development of Chabahar. So they would be allowed to facilitate the development of Chabahar in that sense. So I don't know if it's been put in practice and how far this will go, but both sides were gung-ho. Yeah. Both Iran and India were gung-ho on this whole development of Chabahar. So Chabahar is very important to India's strategic vision in the region, because this was seen as an alternate route to Afghanistan, because Pakistan doesn't give us the overland route to Afghanistan. But you know, if the situation escalates, if there are more hostilities, already there are no-fly advisories in place for Air India and other airlines. So if the situation continues to escalate, then we will see an impact in ties. There will be pressure on India. The diplomatic options will narrow down. And also India will be worried for other reasons, has to be worried for other reasons. There's already the price of oil has shot up, and that will place a very big burden on our import bills. And then there are Indian expatriates in the region. Right. So for very many reasons, India will be concerned. I think yesterday Prime Minister Modi spoke to Trump about his concerns for about the region.
Yeah. So obviously very testing times diplomatically, testing times for the world and the region as a whole. We do not know where this situation is headed, but it's most certainly a very delicate time for the region, the world, and India as well. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Nirupama.
Thank you.
And keep watching the Indian Express Explained.